So I have a really long name and I'm excited to share it because I don't always get to share it. It's Yesenia Lory Sanchez. I was born in Mexico, so I keep two last names, mom and dad. Um, I am a police dispatcher, emergency dispatcher number one. We do promote eventually, and I've been doing this position for one whole year. I know that my career is not really talked about. We're underground. Most of us really work in basements. So nobody really knows we exist. You just know that you call and it happens. But how does it happen? So ask away, no reservations. I'm going to be as honest as possible because I want anybody who's interested in this career to know the reality behind it, not just the 911, what's your emergency? We have two jobs. And so we are divided into two different roles. You either solely answer the phones, which is 911 and regular non-emergency lines. Where do I pay my ticket? That's one job. And your second job is called a radio dispatcher. And radio, you're only communicating with the police officers. So your partner, who's the one that's answering the phones, we refer to them as call takers. They take the call, they talk to the person that's in distress or duress, and they type that into a computer while your partner is on another computer seeing the same information, receiving it, and broadcasting it to the police officers as they are on their way to you. So those are two jobs, and we alternate. It depends on your partner. Every 2 hours we switch, or every 3 hours we switch. So to be a dispatcher, you actually need a high school diploma. However, if you want to grow within the ranks, you want to grow into leadership, it is encouraged that you pursue higher education. Also, at least within my department, higher education gets you more pay. And that's always nice. But you really just need to be a high school graduate with a clean background. We can go into that a little bit later. And we do our training hands-on. And then they send you to a state program, which is 1 month long, and you get post-certified. That's what it's called. And you're a full-fledged dispatcher. It's my favorite question. I was brought to the United States when I was about I was 3 years old. I celebrated my fourth birthday here. My parents were strawberry pickers in Northern California in a city called Watsonville. And I remember that my first field trip when I was in preschool, the first preschool they enrolled me in, it was to our local police agency, and I was fascinated. We're talking 1990, I believe, and I was just fascinated. And there's policemen and police cars, and we went into this place that had these boxy computers, and the lady was so nice, and she took a picture with us. And I went home and I told my parents, I want to be a policewoman. I didn't know there was a difference between dispatch and police. To me, everybody was a policewoman. And my parents were kind of surprised, like, where did this come from? But my dad said, okay, we'll do it. My mom said, okay, then go be a policewoman. So that stayed in my heart from the time I was 4 years old. I loved it. My parents have always had the utmost admiration for law enforcement in the United States. My father did some time as a police officer in Mexico. So we were always taught to respect authority. If we were out having dinner or lunch as a family, we would see a firefighter, a police officer, a military member, and we'd pay for their food. Granted, my parents were low income. However, they always shared because they had so much gratitude in their heart. So I think they always fed that respect, and we learned it, and it stayed with us. And as I grew up, I wanted to do that. Unfortunately, we didn't have programs like these that would mentor us. And so I didn't even know how to get started. We never had police contact in my home. They didn't show up. So I never had contact with them. And I also a DACA recipient. So not being a US citizen, You're not able to become a police officer, a sworn member of law enforcement. So that kind of discouraged me. But when the pandemic happened and everything shut down, the office that I worked for completely shut down and did not reopen. My husband, who's in law enforcement as well, said, "Why don't you just follow your heart? This is your chance. Just do it." And I did it. I literally ran to my computer and I said, "I'm going to do it." And I was hired within a year. It stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. That is people like me who were brought to this country at a really young age. We either were brought illegally or our passports expired because we overstayed our welcome. And our parents had good intentions, but it was a little bit hard for us to get driver's license, to pursue education. Now it's more known, more acceptable, but when we were in high school, nobody had any idea what that was. There was no programs to protect me from deportation or to help me pursue my education in this country. That is all I've ever known.
And
It helps me stay in the United States legally. It helps me stay employed in the United States legally. And it's a pathway to residency and later citizenship. I work with a lot of people that I probably will never see in a lifetime. People that call and I may not hear from them again, and people that call every week and we're on a first name basis. I work with a lot of police officers. I also work with record clerks. I work with, animal control. I work a lot with IT because I have 5 monitors in front of me. And so I need them all the time because we don't have the luxury of ever breaking down. And I say luxury because some people, their computer will break down, they'll go take a lunch break and come back and it'll be fixed. We can't do that. Well, I've had 911 calls because somebody's plumbing broke or somebody's sprinklers wouldn't shut off. Luckily, my father is a landscaper and I know how to install a sprinkler system. So I Googled their house. Luckily, their house was a corner house, so I had a perfect view. I told her where her valves were. I told her what to do, and they shut off. That's really not my job, though. I just happen to know that. I technically should just tell her, you need to call your landscaper. You need to call a local plumber. I have had calls because somebody got diarrhea from eating church's chicken. Go to a hospital and call the health department. I can't control what they serve you or how your stomach digests it. I have also gotten calls about traffic collisions that may seem bad and have resulted in multiple deaths. And probably the one that has stuck with me in this whole year has been a mother calling because she can't wake up her son, and her son was my age. And the call escalated from her trying to be calm, trying to wake him up. She's trying to accept that he's just in deep sleep, to the moment where they call that her son has died and she's in full panic mode. Everything, and you never know what it's going to be. It could be a calm day like right now where it's mellow, the calls are, business as usual, and all of a sudden a 911 line lights up, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and they're all lit up, and it's a terrible traffic accident. And we went from nice conversation to full emergency mode. All the time. Those are common. They're hard to listen to sometimes. One of them in particular, this lady's telling me that her significant other hit her so bad that she has a cut to her face. Don't recall where, but I remember she was bleeding from her face and she told me. And I know people get annoyed when they dial and they get asked a million questions, but I have to ask the question. So I'm going to ask you, what race is he? Is he Black, white, or Hispanic? Because while my officer's there, they may run into 3 people who are wearing a black sweater and blue jeans. Who are they going to approach? Well, he's Hispanic. Okay, only one of those 3 is Hispanic. We are going to approach him. So that's why I'm asking what race they are. Not because I'm trying to really be racist or single anybody out. I'm trying to get to the root of your problem. So that being said, is he Black, white, or Hispanic, or any other race? What color shirt is he wearing? What color pants is he wearing? Does he have any distinguishing marks? Well, he has a tattoo on his face. We hear that frequently. Okay, that is narrowing down who my officer is looking for as they're driving to your house. So she's telling me, describing him. And then she says, but he's a good man. He loves me. I was just rude to him. And I'm mind blown, because if we disagree, we will talk about it. We may have things you and I don't agree on, but I'm not going to hit somebody over that. So it's kind of sad, because you hear that a lot, and there's homes that are frequent callers for domestic disputes, and we'll be back next week, and she'll be back with him, and she'll walk with him to court when he's getting charged for it, but she'll be back with him after court. All of them. I feel that one job prepared me for the next, which prepared me for the next, which prepared me for the next. So when I came into law enforcement, I was so surrounded with people from all walks of life, and so much, not saying I know everything, but I had all this knowledge about people's skills. And I would sell hotel rooms to companies by blocks. They're called room blocks. So I would sell them more than 10 rooms at a time, or extended stays when they're building the Amazon warehouses and they would come stay for 3 months. I was in recruiting, so I learned how to be sensitive to people's stories, right? Because I am working with a mom who is a single mom and has 3 kids, and I have to be flexible with her schedule because she's a great employee. So it helped me understand people and not be so black and white, where you have to be here at work at 8 o'clock, Jen. That's it, do or die. And you give to them, and they give you so much more in return. And the environment at work is amazing, and everybody's vibing together, and going to work is not a drag because we were a genuine, true team. All of those things help me, because the skills that I acquired are not only for me to be a good radio dispatcher or a good call taker, it's also for me to be a great partner, because I am sitting an arm length away from the same person for 12 hours. I'm working with one person for 12 hours. And so a lot of those things just helped me be able to go about my day to day at work with the best attitude as possible. And I contribute because a lot of people have been in law enforcement from the moment they graduated high school. So I'm a little bit more well-rounded, and I tend to throw curveballs here and there, but they're appreciated for the most part. Resilient. You have to be resilient, and you have to have grit, because some days are hard. Training is hard. The training part of dispatching is probably the hardest here, because you're being watched so closely. So not only are you learning, but you're not to make mistakes. It's kind of like paramilitary. Yes, ma'am, I made a mistake. I am sorry, but my mistakes can cost somebody their life. So you're literally under a microscope. There's so many expectations. You're supposed to remember so many things, penal codes, identifying what are the elements of a crime to be able to enter it as this type of call, or enter my call as this type of call. And I can explain that to you a little bit later. But you have to be resilient, and you have to have grit, because when things get so hard and so intense, and you're just trying to pull it all together in the midst of an emergency, you can't give up. You don't just say, I need a breather, I'll be back. I don't have time for a breather. Sometimes I don't have time for a bathroom break or a lunch break. So you have to be able to work through all those emotions, because right now I'm trying to be the best partner to my partner, the best dispatcher to my police officer, and the one person who's going to send you all the help at your worst moment. Computers. Everything is on a computer. So I'll give you an idea of what my station looks like. There's 2 monitors stacked on top of another 2, and then a 5th that's off to, typically it's on my left side. And my left side is my phone lines. So that monitor is dedicated to phone lines. Anytime somebody dials 911, we see the tower where it's pinging. So we have the address of that tower and the proximity to a certain area. It has caller ID, so it has a phone number. If you're not dialing 911, my agency doesn't have caller ID. So only 911 is identified. That's one screen. And then in front of me, my top right screen, that is called the radio. And that is the walkie-talkie that you see the officers talking into, or their radios. That's that monitor connected to a different system. And we also monitor our surrounding cities. So we can hear what is going with all the cities that border ours, because sometimes their situations will transfer into our city and we need to be ready to assist them. Sometimes they will have emergencies where they request for help and we're listening. So before they call us, we're already trying to mobilize our people to go help them, or we'll call and say, do you guys need something? And then the other 3 screens, we kind of arrange them to our liking. One of them is called the CAD system. In one of the screens, my CAD is where all of my calls are being held. Everything that you as a caller tells me is entered into a call system. It's like any database. Every company has their own database. Whether you're in sales, you have your sales database. That's kind of what it is. And then we have a map, and all of our patrol units have GPS trackers on them. So it helps me know where my patrol cars are. Because if there's an emergency on the far north of the city, I'm going to try and send somebody that's there who can get there faster. Sometimes it's not an option, but it helps me know where everybody's at. Also for their safety, if something happens to my officer and he can't tell me where he's at, I have an approximate location. And then we have state databases and federal databases that we also interact with. So if I'm communicating from California to an agency in Texas, they probably don't believe that I'm a dispatcher if I just call them, or that I work for law enforcement. So I have to send what we call a teletype, which is the way we communicate. It's our DMs. And all of that is recorded. Also, anytime a vehicle is stolen, a vehicle is repossessed, we enter that into the database so that when you wake up and you realize your car's not there, we can run it and say, oh, your car's not stolen. They towed it because you parked it on a fire lane. So there's a lot of moving components throughout your day. I don't get to travel anymore. I did when I worked for corporate, but not anymore. My job is stationary. I don't get to work from home. I don't have that option whatsoever. Very much so. You can easily earn into your 6 digits. But the first year, you definitely don't. So first year, you're on base pay. Depends what agency you work for. I applied at multiple agencies, and I will share with you the 3 counties that I applied with. And I never applied to work for a sheriff's department, which are the ones that monitor pretty much the county as a whole and unincorporated areas. I applied to work for a police department within a specific city. So I applied for agencies in LA County. Their starting pay is about $53,000 a year. I applied in Orange County. Starting pay was about the same, in the early 50s. I applied Riverside County, also between $49,000 and $54,000 a year. And Inland Empire, I also applied, and the pay is in the mid 40s. So it's a little bit lower. However, we work a lot of overtime. And our schedules, different agencies do things differently. What I'm familiar with is you work 3 12-hour shifts one week, and the following week you work 3 hour 3 12-hour shifts and 1 8-hour shift. So that makes up your 80 hours in 1 week. 1 week I get 3 days off. The following week I get 4 days off. So that being said, if you pick up 1 day of overtime, that's 12 hours of overtime. That's a lot. And for people who are used to working 5 days a week, like myself, I could work 5 12-hour days a week. You can do the math. And it starts adding up very nicely. Also, we just got a new hire. So I'm one of 4 Spanish speakers now. I am also a trained legal interpreter. And it has come in really handy speaking with callers in law enforcement terms and proper terminology. And so that gives me an extra $200 a month, which I will be honest with you, it's nice, but I don't expect it because that's my native tongue. And how could I withhold using that to help even a larger demographic? I did this for a sole purpose of helping. That extra pay, it's appreciated, but it's not what I intended, to trade for my language. And also with your education, you get percentages. So an associate's gets you like 2-3% extra, and a bachelor's you add another 2%, and a master's you add another 2%. So the pay adds up really nice, but base pay is between mid 40s to mid 50s to start off with. When you do law enforcement, you have to do it with your heart. Otherwise, it's not worth it. It will drain you. It will eat you alive because it is exhausting. We're rude and we are snappy. We get that. I will acknowledge sometimes we are short, but that is because I'm monitoring 23 lines by myself. And so can we just get to the root of your problem? Why did you call me today? Okay, it's going to be because there's a dispute in your home, somebody's arguing. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't need to hear the backstory that initiated this problem 5, 10, 20 years ago. I need to know what's happening right now so we can fix right now. And people get upset, but the more we talk, the less information I get, and then I get a 911. So I'm going to put you on hold for a minute or for 30 minutes because they may be somebody who's suicidal and I cannot hang up with them until my officers get to them, until they're calm. Sometimes they want me to stay on the phone because we've already established a rapport. Does that make sense? So people think we're rude, people think we're snappy, but it's more like, please hold. There's a 911 ringing and you called me on non-911. And as I'm evaluating our conversation, it doesn't seem to be life-threatening because you're not sharing that with me, even though I've asked you 10 times. So people do think that we're rude and snappy. And sometimes it's just a pressure we're under where you just have to go, 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 go. It's not like when I was in sales where I could sit here and talk to you for a whole hour and we can talk about your kids and we can talk about your new car and your new ventures and your hobbies and maybe even transition into dinner. I don't have that time anymore. And so people think that we're rude and snappy, but I'm sorry that we're quick, but I promise you that the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to get somebody to you as soon as I can. Just the satisfaction of living my dream. I can't say it any other way other than living my dream. I'm no longer living vicariously through my husband. It's mine, it's my experience, it's my situation, it's my story, it's my moment. And there's a place where I like to go get snacks in the city where I live. It's like a snack ice cream parlor. I love going there. You'll find me there on my lunch breaks. And they had called once, and it was a moment that was a little hard for them, and we sent help right away. And so kind of the satisfaction of going back and they're still there and they're still thriving and they're still making me my snacks. And those are the things that are so satisfying. It's like I'm living my dream. I don't know how else to express to you. I'm living my dream. You work 12-hour days, and sometimes they turn into 16 and 18-hour days. And it's draining, but I'm living my dream. I just don't know how to tell you that it's all doable through the good and the bad and the ugly when you're doing something that you're passionate about. It changes everything. I make about a quarter of the money I used to make because it's my first year. But it's okay. People will call me and tell me every bad name that they could think of and call me everything horrible. And you need to get your ass over here now. I'm like, oh, okay. So what's going on? Well, I want my son out of the house because he did all these horrible things and he's not welcome here. And I'm sitting here thinking, you want me to help you, but you just told me how you believe we are worthless and useless. I'm still going to help you. I will never withhold help. And like I said, I work with the best. So anything that I'm sending is the best. But understand that your demeanor is not appreciated. And even though you were mean and ugly to me, I'm not changing the service I'm giving you versus the service I'd give my mom. Right? So that's how I live my life. That's how my husband lives his life. That's how, as a family, we choose to go about life. My mom gets a little bit more hurt when she hears things, but she doesn't have as thick of skin in that aspect. And we tell her it's fine. Those are their opinions. You know the reality of it. And I tell my mom, I love what I'm doing. And that one person's opinion does not change it at all. I am sorry that they have to live a life where they feel that all things around them is negative. But if they stopped and looked for 1 minute, they would find something to be grateful for, and that mindset would shift. How hard training was going to be. Everybody always told me it's a great job. The people I ended up looking for people who, so let me rewind so I can put into perspective. So I'm a police officer's wife. So there's a lot of support groups for us on social media. So I went into one of those groups and I said, is anybody here a dispatcher? Well, lo and behold, everybody's married to a dispatcher. It's the thing, law enforcement and dispatch. Why? Because we work so many hours together. And this really nice lady reached out to me and she was like, yes, I'm in like Southern California. And I said, oh, well, I live in this city. She says, well, I dispatch next door to you. And she says, you want to come sit with me? And we became friends. And she has the greatest personality, let me tell you. Just a nice lady. Everything's great. Anything's great when you're around her. And she made it look so easy because she has a wonderful personality. She has a wonderful demeanor. She's so positive about everything. And she said, you're going to do great. You have the personality. Yes, but I never asked the question. So she didn't answer questions that I didn't ask. So I wish I would have known how hard training was going to be. So now we keep in touch. She actually works with my husband now. And we keep in touch all the time. And I tell her, like, this is so hard. And she says, it's okay. You've got it. These are the tools that help me overcome that. So she's my go-to. She's my mentor. Her name's Patty. I lean on her. Miss Patty is who I turn to when something gets rough because she tells me how she got through it and she proves that we're going to get through it. It's fine. Just move along. I do have a work-life balance because I choose to. I don't make my job my life. I work with the best. So when I am gone, they've got it. When I'm not there, they're the best. They can handle it. When I get to work, it's their family time, it's their personal time. I want them to trust that I can hold down the fort. And so having that in mind is helpful. Same with my husband. He's very great about leaving work at work. He's been a police officer for 27 or 28 years. So he's he has that down to a T. You actually come to our house and you won't even know there's law enforcement that lives here. We have a little wall with memorabilia, and it's kind of more in a family area where it's not visible to our guests, but nothing from work follows us home. When we are at home, we are at home. We are devoted to our family. We're devoted to our hobbies, to going to church, to the things that we love. And when we are at work, we are devoted to our community, to our partners, and to our job. I'm so passionate about it. I love it. I love what I'm doing. It's hard. Yesterday was a little rough for me. It was my last day for my work week. And you have to have very healthy hobbies to be able to survive this job. That is the one thing that I should have mentioned. You definitely have to have healthy hobbies. I'm into fitness. I'm into working out. I actually just posted a meme that says, if I ever die lifting weights, please make sure you add more weight to my weights and then call 911 so they think that I lifted higher than I really did. But my husband and I are really into fitness. We spend a lot of time working out and eating. We love to eat. We love going everywhere and anywhere where we can find something new, something different. We love all the TV shows that are about food and exploring different cultures. And that has been so healthy for us because we find things to focus on. We don't have children, so we find things to focus on, to do, to kind of keep us learning, keep us engaged, keep us interacting, because there's times where this job will shut you down to people. As much as I love interacting with people, there's days where I just want to hunker down and be quiet. And so I had to find a balance where I don't become a different person when I'm outside of work. I want to still be passionate about life. I still want to be passionate about people, but there's days where I'm frustrated. So I have to find ways. And going to restaurants, you talk to a server, you listen to their story, you people watch, and you enjoy great food, and you learn about the culture or the background where this food came from. And it just spirals into just loving and living life. But definitely have very healthy lifestyle and healthy habits, because we sit for 12 hours straight. You know, you have to be planned, disciplined, because you have to prepare food for 12 hours. You don't have the luxury of getting up and going to a restaurant and getting food and bringing it back. So you have to be prepared. So there's a lot that goes into your personal life to be successful, but it's doable. And like I said, I have my husband who's been in law enforcement for decades, and my friend Patty, who's been a huge mentor. So at moments when I still feel lost, I go to them. And my partners that I work with, they've been in for 20, 30 years. I just don't want to overwhelm them sometimes because they're training me and then they have to deal with all my personal questions. But, you know, find your tribe. Call your local agency and ask if you can do a sit along. But you have to pass a background, and it's a very extensive background. And if that's a career that you want to consider in your future, there is a lifestyle that you have to maintain. And by that, I mean drug-free affiliations, associations, social media interactions. There's the experimenting with drugs, just a lot of things that you have to be guarded of, because they can be the deal breaker for you getting into law enforcement. Financials, bankruptcies, collections, all of those things are looked at. Integrity is huge. And you do extensive backgrounds. They come to your house, they knock on your neighbor's doors. You have a packet that's yay big, and it's just listing your family members. If your parents are divorced, their extended families through their significant others, references from every job, and not just your boss, your coworkers, because they know you better than your boss. People that you interact with from different walks of life, friends from high school, friends from college, my neighbors, friends from previous jobs, friends that I've made at church, clergy from church. They dig deep into who you really are, because we have so much information at our fingertips. We have so much sensitive information, integrity. And even if you made a mistake, correct it. I will admit to you guys that when I moved, I never changed my address to my home. I left it to my parents' home. And I received I think this federal tax bill, and I never saw it. It's not my parents' responsibility to hound me for my mail. I'm an adult. It's my responsibility. And I oversaw it. And I was working in human resources at that time, and I'm the one that's working with garnishing people's wages. And guess whose wages get garnished? Mine. I owed $200. Could have paid it. I was making great money. But that was just an oversight on my end. So when that came up in my background, I have to explain that to my investigator. And the truth is what I just told you. It was irresponsible on my behalf. Nonetheless, I called IRS right away and I said, hey, my wages are being garnished. Can I pay you off right now? And they said, you can pay it now, or you can just get it garnished. We can't undo the garnishing. So or garnishments, whatever it's called. And then you're going to get your money back if we take too much. So those are the things that they refer to when we talk about integrity. Yes, I made a mistake, but yes, I owned up to it and I corrected it. So it's not just, I think I have the personality and I think I have the education for it, but have I lived a life that will allow me to enter into law enforcement and handle people's sensitive information? Because in the city that I work in, my officers have had negative interaction with people that I personally know. And once they give me that name, I'm running them through the system to see if they have any warrants, to see if they have any priors. And by priors, we mean any negative contact with the police that they've been charged for. And so now I know all this information about this person who I possibly sit at church next to. What am I going to do? That am I going to share with everybody else? And so those are the things that they're trying to figure out about you. So there's a lot of work that you have to put into yourself to be eligible for a career like this. You can be an administrative assistant. The chief, the captains, they need administrative assistants to help keep their office moving because they have a lot of other jobs that they tend to. And you can be a records clerk. They're the ones that maintain all of the police reports. They're the ones that prepare that information that is sent to court when it has to go to trial. They're the ones that enter the citations and send them to court. And pretty much they're the record keepers of everything that is documented. You can be a jailer, and they're the ones that transport the prisoners. If somebody gets arrested at Walmart and the officer says, can we have the jailer meet me here? The jailer goes and meets them, picks up their person that they've detained and transports them to the local jails. You can be animal control. If you rather work with that end, you can be a law enforcement technician. They're the ones that take what we call cold reports. So my vehicle was broken into sometime overnight. I parked it at 7 p.m. when I came home, and I just walked out my door right now at noon, and my window shattered. Who did it? I have no idea. No surveillance, nothing. If I don't feel comfortable entering this online myself, they send, we call them LETs, other companies call them other agencies call them CSOs, and they're law enforcement technicians, and they take the report. There's no suspect. So everything's just documented, and I can pick up my report from the police department when I request it. There is parking enforcement. We love them. Don't park in the red zone. Don't park in a no stopping sign, and do not leave your vehicle parked for more days than it's supposed to on a public roadway, or don't have expired tags while you're parked in a public area. So that's their job, making sure that we keep our streets nice, that we don't have abandoned vehicles, that everything is maintained nice in our neighborhoods. We appreciate them for that. I'm trying to think what else we have. We have behavioral health. When we have the calls for people who are in psychiatric distress, they can send psychiatric help. We also have programs from the county and their social workers who provide resources to the transients in the area, people who are homeless, people who want to recover, people who need a place to live. I know there's more. I'm trying to go through them all in my head. We have volunteers. Some of our volunteers, we use them to help us when we have events. They help us around the station. And what's really neat, especially if you're still unsure, you're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, we have an Explorer program, which allows you to go pretty much through police training and do a lot of scenarios and really start getting familiar with what the job is. And then once you go to college and you need a part-time job, you can become a police cadet, and they help in every department throughout the station. Oh, the one department I forgot to mention, which is very important, is property. We have a property department, and they are the ones that book all of the evidence. Super neat job. They maintain record of all the evidence that we have, whether it's evidence of a crime, whether it's a traffic collision and they need to investigate what happened and how it went about. Also, if we find property, we found a cell phone and we don't know who it belongs to, we will book it into property. But our police departments are so complex and there's so many departments within it. And you kind of find your niche and you kind of find the things you like. So we have like DUI checkpoints, and sometimes you need a dispatcher to handle the DUI checkpoints, and the officers are requesting information like rapid fire, and your fingers are moving faster than you can see and your brain's like spinning. But some people like that adrenaline. So it's kind of neat because if you need more of that, they have more of that for you. And if you like being a call taker and you're okay just being a radio dispatcher and it works for you, that's fine. If you don't want to do the overtime, you try and cut that down to a minimum as you can. We have to be team players and fill in, because it's not like other jobs where you call in and your job's just going to be there tomorrow. It's fine. It'll just keep piling up. We don't have that luxury. So if my partner calls off, I'm going to stay there until they find a replacement, until somebody can come in and replace me, because I'm not going to just leave because I was scheduled to be gone at 6 p.m. So you have to have that flexibility, but it's really just a great job with so much room for growth, so much. And honestly, if at some point you decide you want to be a police officer, do it. You already have a lot of the knowledge with the elements of crimes, with the types of crimes that you just say, I want to be a police officer. You apply for it, you go through that process, and you're going to be employed as a police officer eventually. It's going to happen. You just have to want it and you will get it. Don't worry about the money. That will follow. When you put your heart and you pour that passion into it, the money follows. Believe me. I am living proof of it. I have friends that are living proof of it, that you do your job and you do it with so much passion that you're going to be employed. You're going to be wanted and needed because you're giving it your all. And there's so much room for growth, and there's more trainings that you take, and then you become a training officer and you make a little bit more money because now you're training the new dispatchers, and then you become a type of dispatcher that is tactical and you handle all the tactical situations, like when there's a SWAT thing. And there's just so many avenues with it. It's not just one everyday repetitive, I answer phones, I dispatch the radio. There's so much to it. Worry about following your heart and following your passion, because I'm not going to lie, it was scary taking a huge pay cut. And luckily my husband's very supportive, and I saved a lot because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't going to stay in corporate forever. So I saved, which helped carry me through. But ultimately, it's a year of sacrifice that is going to pay off. It's so worth it.